All right, number of followers on social media. This is counted. You can't have, like, you could say, oh, I have how many followers? You would just say, I have a certain number, right? This is discrete. This is discrete. You couldn't have like 3.5 followers, right? It's not anything in a range. It's just, it can only be certain numbers. The distance from your home to school, this is continuous. Like you could live continuous. You could live like 1 mile away, but you could also live 1.1 miles away, 1.2 miles away, 1.3, right? Like distance is going to be a continuous value. This graph shows certain points. This is called a discrete graph. And this graph shows all, like the x and y values are all these range of numbers. This is going to be a continuous graph. Okay, let's take a look at a couple examples of how we're going to use this in the project. And there's other ways that this gets used, but we're just going to focus on the ways in which it comes up in your project. So remember, the domain is all the x values, and since x values are left and right, when we go from the smallest to the largest, it's going to be the left x value to the right x value. Okay, now notice when we first talked about this in Desmos, we used less than signs. These are less than or equals to signs. It sort of doesn't matter which one you use in the project, so don't worry about it for now. There is a distinction, but it's not something we need to concern ourselves with right now. The range is all the y values. Now the y values are up and down values. So when we're looking for the y values, we're looking for the bottom of the graph. That's going to be the smallest y value, right? Like the smallest y value here is down here, -7. And then the top of the graph is going to be the largest y value. So this is always what it's going to look like, left to right and bottom to top. So a great strategy is to kind of just like imagine like a box around this graph. So like if I were to draw a box around this graph, right, and it would just kind of look like this, this would be the 4 values that I need, right? I need a left value, a right value, a bottom value, and a top value. So my domain goes from left, so here's my left side. My smallest x value is -4, and then my largest x value is 2. So my domain of this graph is -4 to 2. And then the bottom of my graph is at -1, and the top of my graph is at 5. Okay, so left to right, bottom to top. Okay, I'm going to do 2 more examples, then you're going to try. Okay, here, domain. Look, again, I can draw a box. So if I were to draw a box, it would look like this. Now, I want my box to be the smallest box possible that holds my whole graph. So in this case, my box looks like this. So my domain, going from left to right, so here's my left side value. That left side is -1. And my right side value, the most right portion of my graph is right here at 3. Okay, the bottom of my graph is here at -7. And the top of my graph is here at a y value of 1. Notice for domain, I'm always looking at the x value, right? I'm always looking at this line for the domain numbers. And when I'm looking for range numbers, I'm always looking at this line because my domain is always x values and my range is always y values. Last example, then you're going to try. Remember, we're drawing a box around this graph, and I'm going to show you there's a certain mistake that's really common people make, but I'm drawing a box. Okay, so let's start with the domain. The left value here is -8, and the right value here is -2. Okay, now the range. A really common mistake for people to make here is to say, oh, okay, here's the bottom of the graph. Here's the end of the graph, the bottom end. The range starts at 1. But no, you're right, this is the end of the graph, but it doesn't matter. We're looking for the bottom of the graph. So that is here. And that y value is 0, right? The bottom of the graph is right here, and we're looking at this line for y values, so the bottom of the graph is 0. And then the top of the graph is at 4. Okay, so that's all the examples, and then you're going to try these 4 practice problems.